Iconic club in Minnesota cancels legendary comic due to wokeness. I'm Jazz Berganzo, and this is what's next.
Gender is a fact. This is a fact. Every human being in this room, every human being on earth had to pass through the legs of a woman to be on earth. That is a fact.
Everyone, Jazz Berganzo here, another episode of What's Next, your daily dose, the weekend edition. Dave Chappelle. Yes, Mr. Savage himself, the closer himself. The legendary icon from the Chappelle Show. And of course, the memorable characters such as Rick James. Of course, these days, you've got the woke mob hating on Chappelle big time. They can't stand him right now. They can't stand that Netflix is standing by him regarding his specials. They can't stand him because they are getting all butthurt because he spoke facts regarding gender. Well, it continues. Legendary club in Minnesota, which housed Prince himself, cancels on Chappelle last minute due to woke. Let's take a look. This comes out of Outkick. Comedians decry Chappelle's cancellation, a prohibition of free speech. An iconic Minneapolis club canceling Dave Chappelle's July 20 gig didn't happen in a vacuum. Cancel culture impacts comedians across the culture, suggesting they can't share certain jokes or riff on groups considered vulnerable in Western societies. For some, Chappelle did the latter in his 2021 Netflix legendary special, the most watched special in Netflix history, The Closer. Critics accused the comedy giant of transphobia for gags name-checking the trans community. Others pointed to the special's heartfelt tribute to the trans comic as a proof that Chappelle meant no harm to the community in question. Yeah, I'm going with the former, not the latter. The former sentiment coaxed First Avenue, where Prince shot scenes from his beloved '84 movie Purple Rain, to cancel Chappelle's appearance on the last minute. Most comedians contacted by Outkick slammed the decision, citing free expression concerns as well as how it might impact other comedians moving forward. Podcaster and comic Adam Carolla mocked First Avenue's social media message explaining its decision. We believe in diverse society. This is coming out of First Avenue, excuse me. We believe in diverse voices and freedom of artistic expression, but in honoring that, we lost sight of the impact this would have. Quote, I can't stand when people talk about how much they love expression and free speech in the same breath call for censorship and cancellation. Do you ever hear yourself? Asked Carolla, author of the just released book Everything Reminds Me of Something, Advice, Answers, but No Apologies. Carolla objects to fears that the wrong joke can cause real-world harm. There's no impact. We keep changing the language from offended to affected, and now it's impacted. If you don't like Chappelle, don't go to his show. Problem solved. No impact. Fact. The host of Fox News, Gutfeld, addressed the subject via his late-night showcase. Chappelle is being dangerous. He speaks his mind. That's real risk these days in the face of a faceless mob, Gutfeld said in his opening monologue. Comedian Josh Denny, previously canceled for sharp-elbowed comments on race and abortion, spent years in Minnesota and knows First Avenue very well. He called it the house that Prince built, given the late musician's deep ties to the venue. It was a holy place in the minds of every artist who had spent time in the lands of 10,000 lakes, Denny said, in one fell swoop. That entire legacy and reputation is now destroyed as the venue has abandoned the spirit of artistic integrity that it was built upon. It's worth noting that the First Avenue's reputation includes hosting black artists at a time where other venues blocked their paths to fame. Denny added that his own contrarian approach to comedy had already put a cancel culture target on his back, and this won't make things better. I wish I could say that this was a sign of things to come, but those things are already here, Denny says, and I and many others have already have to hide the identity of our venues to avoid these mobs and cancellation. This is a prohibition of speech, Denny adds. Openly conservative comic and legend, in my opinion, Nick DiPaolo, slammed the cancellation as anti-American. They actually described Dave as a danger to the trans community, like they found the decomposing corpse of Chaz Bono on RuPaul underneath his house, says DiPaolo, co-starring in the indie comic Any comedy 4th of July with canceled comic Louis C.K. Quote, I love the fact that we live in a country where a minuscule group of people have the rest of the population terrified of their canceling power, for the lack of a better term, DePaulo says. Comedian and podcaster Chrissy Mayer thinks capitalism may offer the unique critique of the venue's decision. If a business would prefer to cater to a woke mob than make money, that's their choice, Mayer said, adding that she wouldn't bring her act to the venue. The Knitting Factory in Brooklyn was a popular comedy venue that went super woke in the past few years, and guess what? They're closing next month. Perhaps First Avenue will meet a similar fate. Fox Across America host Jimmy Fallon suspects anyone outraged by Chappelle's material isn't being honest. I think we've reached a point in our culture where there are some on the left being offended is a form of currency. You get loads of attention, and oftentimes you get promoted at work. You get someone fired outside of the work, which is a powerful feeling, Fala said. The crazy part of the Chappelle story is that he joked about the trans community being too sensitive, and that they responded by protesting him at every stop. Select Netflix employees protested the closure late last year, but of course it failed miserably. Protesting Chappelle's gets huge attention because he's the most famous comic out there, Falla said, adding that many comics tell trans jokes without generating Chappelle-level attention. Louis C.K., owner of the Acme Comedy in Minneapolis, Louis Lee, is no stranger to staff revolts over controversial comedians. His policy is to stick to initial agreement. A contract is a contract, says Lee, adding, it's unheard of for a venue to cancel an act the last minute. I always say, too bad, the show must go on. Lee predicts that Chappelle's cancellation might force comedians to insist on tighter contracts to avoid similar issues. The Minneapolis institution may also have opened the doors to similar protests, not to mention the need to screen future comics for so-called offensive gags. If they give in for once, they have to give in every time from now on, he says. My thoughts. The fact of the matter is that when you have venues that continue to go woke because of being butthurt, dude, you're no longer in the industry of making money. Capitalism is out the window now. The fact of the matter is that when you go after the biggest fish in the ocean, which is Dave Chappelle, yeah, if we can make example out of Dave, we're going to feel better about ourselves. We're going to pat ourselves on the back. We're going to be progressive. We're going to continue to be woke. Well, once again, the old adage, still stays true. Get woke, go broke. And sadly, this Minneapolis institution just might go that way. And with that being said, I'm Jasper Gonzo, and this is What's Next. And just me, but I think Prince would kind of be embarrassed about this. Check it out. Comment on it. Subscribe to it. Share it. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.